Today I will be talking about a disease that many people have heard of, but few know a lot about. This disease is ALS. I'll talk about what ALS is, including who can be affected by this disease and its symptoms, along with the history of ALS, who discovered it, and who Lou Gehrig is, and finally about ALS Today, including the Ice Bucket Challenge and ALS in the Heartland. Getting started, I think it's important to understand what ALS is. ALS stands for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and it is a progressive neurodegenerative disease that affects nerves in the brain and the spinal cord. There are two different types of ALS. The first is sporadic. This is the most common form of the disease. Between 90 to 95% of all cases are sporadic because anybody can get this form. The second is familial, and this is inherited. Somebody with ALS has a 50% chance that their offspring will also get this disease. ALS strikes between the ages of 40 to 70 years old, and somebody with ALS only lives for about 2 to 5 years longer. The symptoms of ALS vary from person to person. One may report that they have troubles gripping a pen, while another has troubles lifting a coffee cup. One universal symptom is the progression of nerve deterioration over time. It starts in the fingers and the toes and slowly works its way up the limbs until they lose full function. As this time goes on, the symptoms gradually get worse, and by the end of this disease, the patients can no longer breathe or swallow on their own. As of right now, there is no cure or prevention to this disease, but the research is still being conducted. According to the ALS Association, military veterans are twice as likely to get this disease than the general public. The reasoning behind this is still unknown, but the research is still being conducted. Now on to the history of ALS. Even though some of you are just learning about this disease now, this has affected thousands of people's lives for many years. The start to understanding this disease began with a French neurologist by the name of Jean-Martin Charcot when he discovered this disease in 1869. This disease did not become well known until a famous baseball player by the name of Lou Gehrig was diagnosed with this disease in 1939. According to the official website of Lou Gehrig, he was nicknamed the Iron Horse. He was known for having the longest consecutive game streak with over 2,130 games played in a row. His streak broke in May of 1939 when the pains of his mystery illness forced him to pull himself from the lineup. It wasn't until June when he was at the Mayo Clinic when he was diagnosed with ALS. He would never play the sport that he loved again. Another famous person that you may have heard of is Stephen Hawking, but his case of ALS is very rare and has never been heard of before. Like I said before, people with ALS usually only live for about 2 to 5 years with this disease. But Stephen Hawking was diagnosed when he was 21, and he is 74. So, like what I said before, it's very rare that something like this would happen. According to the ALS Association, less than 5% of ALS patients live past 2 decades, and he has doubled that statistic. Now that you've learned about the history of this disease, it's important to talk about what's happening with ALS today. Many people have heard of ALS because of a challenge that circulated in 2014 known as the Ice Bucket Challenge. Participators of this challenge would dump a bucket of ice-cooled water over their heads to stimulate the feeling that ALS patients experience when the nerves in their fingers and their toes stop working. This challenge not only raised awareness for ALS, but it also raised donations. Over $115 million were raised to research this disease. And through that research, a new gene mutation of this disease was found that is thought to be partially responsible for this disease. Researchers are hopeful that with this new discovery, they will be able to find a prevention and cure for this disease. More locally, there is an organization called ALS in the Heartland. Each year they hold walks to raise awareness for this disease, and I've been lucky enough to volunteer at these walks for the past 2 years in a row. At these walks, they raise awareness for the disease, remember those who have lost their fight, and encourage those who are still fighting today. Through this organization, I've been lucky enough to see the hope and optimism that these families and patients hold in an area near us. After learning about what ALS is, including who can be affected by this disease and its symptoms, as well as the history of this disease, who Jean Martin Charcot is, as well as who Lou Gehrig is, and finally, through learning about the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge and ALS in the Heartland, I hope that you as well will have the hope and optimism that these families have who are still fighting this disease today. Thank you.